Welcome to Beyond the Flare, a podcast from IFPA created in partnership with Johnson & Johnson. This is a space where voices from across the global psoriatic disease community come together to share experiences, insights, and ways we can shape a healthier future together. I'm your host, Janina Kostukaite, and today we're going to explore what it means to find a purpose while living with psoriatic disease, and we will talk about challenges, turning points, and the power of connection along the way. And before we dive in, I would like to give our guests a moment to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabriel Ortinola. I'm from Peru. I'm 25 years old, and I'm an IFPA ambassador here in Peru.
Hi everyone, my name is Chiara and Salim. I'm 27 years old. I am an IFPA Global Ambassador from Indonesia and also the founder of Psoriasis Indonesia, a platform on patient organizations for people living with psoriatic disease.
Thank you both, and let's jump straight in. I believe that purpose can mean something different to everyone, and it often shifts over time, especially when health becomes a central point of your story. And before we go deeper into each of your stories, can you briefly describe how this idea of purpose shows up for each of you when dealing with psoriatic disease?
I have been living with psoriatic disease recently, just 2 years. It hit me in my young age, no? So I changed a lot my personality, because I don't want people to see me, to get very close to me. But before that, I was a very social guy. I like to go out, to travel, to go to parties. And when it starts, the psoriasis in me, I have to change a lot. I became shy. I don't like to go out to my friends. They ask me, why do you don't go out with us? And I was just saying excuses. But then when I meet IFPA, when I meet a lot of people like me in Colombia, and I found that they just live their life without any complication. So I just try to be like people like this, no?
And Chiara, do you agree with Gabriel? Is your purpose also within this advocacy part?
I can definitely say yes, that throughout this journey living with psoriasis since the age of 9 years old have definitely eventually evolved into something that is filled with purpose, but that wasn't something that was instantly fine in the beginning, right? Especially I got it at such a young age. So purpose itself was something that evolved on its own. When I grew up as a kid with severe psoriasis all over my body, it impacted, like what Gabriel mentioned, my confidence, the way I live my life, the way I showed up in my life, right? It was full of why does it have to be me, full of suppressed anger, the unfairness of it, the shame, the guilt of every flare-up, the burden of being like the sick kid in the family who needs constant care and financial aid here and there. So it wasn't something that was easy to deal with as a kid. It was way too much, but then finding a way that, hey, there's actually meaning towards all of this suffering eventually by learning that I can do something about this in a way through sharing my story. It helps people to feel less alone. Building a community, being able to use my story for good, to advocate and regards to in front of healthcare professionals, the policymakers and everything. Turns out it's something that can be meaningful. Like started finding meaning towards that. But I also think that purpose in living with psoriasis is not just about the advocacy part, but it shows up in the daily life in a way that psoriasis teaches me into what kind of values and what is important in my life, being a kid when you're just growing up, you really values about the people around you looking pretty, how to dress up and everything. But with psoriasis, everything is just taken away from you because it's a very visible skin conditions. But then at such a young age, it was a hard pill to swallow. But then you also learn about what actually matters in life, how to build meaningful relationships, how to then, manage your mental health, how to regulate the emotions and everything. And it becomes kind of like its own little purpose in my daily life to be able to live better with myself and to be able to show up better in life as a better human being too.
Yeah, as you said, this purpose doesn't come out of nowhere. There is always something behind that story. And I know that your early experiences were really challenging. Can you share some of those struggles with us?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a plethora of different challenges, right? From healthcare system, accessing and getting diagnosis in the first place. There's also the stigma and the way that you process your own pain and everything. I can say that my biggest challenges begins with the first one, which is stigma, be it the societal induced stigma or the self-induced one. Because there's like, as I mentioned earlier, there's an insurmountable unspoken pressure and definition of beauty in the social media, in the world itself, right? When I was younger, it was like in the TV, in the magazines that we see, it's all about like smooth, perfect skin of what is normal and what is accepted. And having such a visible condition that runs through my whole body just definitely redefine who I am and how I show up to the world. Definitely so easy to just feel ugly, feeling disgusted by my own skin, feeling undeserving, shying away from going out, from living your life. Then I fear people looking at me. I fear people judging me. People did judge me, I wasn't allowed to go into a changing room in the department store. I doubt my friend's genuineness because really, are you really okay with this? Like, do you accept this, me with psoriasis? Because I'm not okay with this, I don't know how you can be okay with this. And then it's all just running in your head 24/7, all the thoughts, the questions, the insecurities, the fear. And then comes with the pain that never goes away, with the constant discomfort, the itchiness that haunts you each night. Waking up the next morning with your bed sheets full of blood here and there, the stings when you wash my scalp when I shower. It's just a constant reminder that you are not normal, you are sick, and your skin is ugly. And it's just mentally and emotionally very overwhelming that I didn't know how to process. So I just isolate myself, trying to fill my day with distractions just so I don't have to focus on my own reality. So I did read just like a bunch of fiction books trying to escape my reality into someone else's. And it really shaped the way that I grew up as a person, became a really people pleaser, trying to fit in just to be accepted because I feel like I'm already lacking by having psoriasis. And so I feel like I have to make up for it in how I show up and how I befriend other people in order to be accepted and be enough for them, because I, as myself, with my disease, I feel like I'm not enough at all.
Oh, that's very touching, and thank you for being so open and talking about this mental toll. And I'm really curious because I know you've lived in several countries. How was it navigating the healthcare system? Because you're struggling with yourself, your self-image, but then have you received any support from the doctors?
When I was in Malaysia for university, I was still like 17 years old. So I was still trying to find my way in how do I advocate myself in terms of healthcare access. It was quite overwhelming because like there are doctors who didn't really want to listen to you, or there are doctors who really make it like seems like it's a like made me feel like I'm really dying there when I had like severe erythrodermic psoriasis, and I was alone there, like without my parents at that time because I just moved to Malaysia and I already started university. So there's also like it's needing to find the balance and being able to navigate in how we show up and how we communicate to the doctors. It's definitely been a learning journey. But as I grew up, I learned better on like how to ask for help. What kind of help do I want to ask? how do I respond to certain things, and then knowing that what kind of tools are available out there so I can demand more to the doctors about what I actually need.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your journey. And Gabriel, you have been diagnosed only a few years ago. How was it for you?
Well, it's changed my life completely. So I went to a lot of doctors here in Peru, and they told me that it's a chronic disease. And so for me, it was very hard because psoriasis disease uh, it's very visual. You can see the flakes in all your body. So as I told you before, I was the kind of guy who liked to travel, who liked to go to the beach, who liked to go out with his friends. And when I start treatment, I started like feeling better, but then it doesn't work on me. I like starting looking about it, and I found a lot of information about disease, no, about the disease. So I start like changing my lifestyle and trying to accept this this condition that I have. I'm starting like to living with it.
And can you elaborate a little bit on what changes have you made? How different your lifestyle is now?
I remember one key moment that I was in my room. I was changing me to put my pajama. Um, s- my mom suddenly entered and she looked me without my t-shirt. And she see that all flakes I have in my body, that it was a lot. And she just asked me like one question that, are you okay? And when she asked me that, all my thoughts came to my mind, and I said, well, I'm not okay. And from that moment, like when I start to cry, I said to my mom how I feel all that year. I wasn't feeling okay. I changed all my lifestyle. Um, she told me, I'm going to support you. And she starting like preparing me healthy dishes, or also tell me to going to do sports, and also to get informed about this disease, and to also to tell people, to tell first my near my close family, my close friends, like, do I have this, and they don't have to worry because it's not contagious, and that, and that's the, well, the moment that it changed all the way that I live with it.
It's a good reminder to all of us that sometimes just asking a simple question, are you okay, can be enough to really make a difference. And it seems that for you, it was that moment when you started working on your mindset and listening to both of your experience. I think it's very clear that purpose, as we identified at the beginning of the episode, that it doesn't appear out of nowhere. It grows out of challenges, support, and this self-discovery. And now I would like to ask you both the same question. And maybe, Chiara, let's start with you. How did your difficult moments transform into something meaningful?
It started as, as we get more and more, like social media advanced more and more, and then we're able to connect with more people who are living with psoriasis, particularly in Indonesia. I realized something, that there's such a big gap of understanding of psoriasis. Of course, in general, stigma is still big. That's the first thing that I realized. And then the second one is realizing how privileged I am in even though I'm suffering with psoriasis, but I'm privileged of having parents who are willing and able to afford to support me for my medically, bringing me to doctors, having access to healthcare, and then having parents who are able to give me good educations that I'm able to speak English so that I can read and understand about all the informations out there in the internet about psoriasis. So I understand. I am able to learn about what my disease is about. But there are so many people out there who are lacking the understanding and doesn't even have the tools to learn to understand it, and then lacking of the support and the access to care. And so then it kind of like ponders in my mind and how big of the gap is. And then it started with the simple questions that pops out is that how can I extend my privileges, the privileges that I have in living with psoriasis, to others who also live like me with psoriasis, right? So it's started with me being able to share more about my psoriasis journey in my own personal Instagram, and then seeing that people reacted to it very positively. People outside of my friends circle started reaching out to others who I don't even know, who are complete strangers, and then they're reacting to it as I'm finally seeing someone, a representation of someone who are like me, who have psoriasis, and how important and empowering it is to be able to see someone else being able to bravely show up with their disease, and that's something that a lot of us have always been hiding with, you know? And then to answer how do I extend the privileges, then thinking how do we reach people nowadays? How do we solve the problem in my own capacity, what I am able to do it now? So it started with just a simple Instagram page by translating informations out there about psoriasis into Bahasa Indonesia, and then putting it in a bite-sized content of, back then there wasn't Reels, so it was just carousel posts about what is psoriasis, the kind of types of psoriasis, what kind of treatments, what kind of triggers are out there that we have in our daily life, what can be triggers and everything. I know that there was a gap, but I didn't know how powerful it can be, you know, until like I started doing it, and then the platform just grew on its own because it is something that was really needed. The community just built on itself because it was something that people really have been lacking all this time, but now they find a place to be together and to learn together. And I think one of the peak moments of really realizing that this is something real and something big is when we are able to meet individually, like face to face. And then they would say like, this is complete strangers whom I don't know where they're from, their background, their family, where did they go to school and everything. But they're able to say to me face to face, looking me in the eyes, that thank you for creating this because I feel like now I have a family. Just because we are now finally collectively together sharing the same struggle, the same wound, the same trauma of living with psoriasis, and then now they are able to find a space that they can be who they are and feeling seen for who they are completely in their pain and in their struggles.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And I think I feel the same every year for these annual IFPA events when we meet and you can hear people's stories. It's really very inspiring. And you both, and especially you, Chiara, it's inspiring how much you achieved in the field by being very open and sharing your story. You've been traveling to so many events, not only IFPAs, but other global big events. But before that happened, for everybody, the first day after diagnosis can feel very confusing. So do you have something to tell to those people who might be right at the beginning of their journey?
I think for people who just right at the beginning of the journey, it can feel like, your world has just been turned upside down. You feel very overwhelmed by what does this mean for my life and for my future? What does this mean for my relationships, for my school, for my work, for everything? And knowing that first and foremost, feeling overwhelmed is completely valid and very justified. And don't pressure yourself to be strong or find silver linings immediately. I know that a lot of people, when we're going through something, and people would definitely respond, "Oh, I hope you stay strong. You got this." It's fine to not stay strong, especially in the beginning, especially when you need to break. It's okay to break. It's a part of the journey. It's part of the healing. You need to break. You need to not be okay in the first place. So I think first and foremost, being diagnosed, which is very overwhelming, very scary, is to be able to know and hear from people who are already went through it, to know that, this isn't the end. Like, we were in your place, and now we were able to live our lives better alongside psoriasis. So even though you can't see it yet right now, but we can tell you that this is not the end. You're just in the beginning of your journey, and there is a process that is definitely, I know it's not easy, it's not going to be easy, but there is a process that you will go through, and that can lead you to live a better life, to a more beautiful life, filled with more meaning, more purpose, in any way, shape, or form that you can create that to be.
Thank you for this beautiful message, and building on that, like that you're not alone. And I know that many people want to connect or get involved, but aren't sure where to begin. And Gabrielle, I would like to bring you in. For those listeners who feel that way, what would you suggest? If we want to connect or get involved, what would be your first line advice?
Get involved with it. It's not the end of the world. This disease can be confusing at first, because you will ask, okay, why me? Why me? What did I do? But as Chiara tell, is the beginning of the journey. You just have to accept it and make it part of you. It's not all of you. This disease doesn't define you, but you have to accept that it's part of you. So look for information, and also to try to share your story in order to people to doesn't feel alone too.
Yeah, sharing stories definitely make a meaningful impact, and you're both a great example of that. And even in this session, we have talked about challenges, growth, and mindset, as you said, Gabrielle. And I would like to close with something that brings it all together. So, Chiara, we start with you. What does living the life you choose mean to you today?
Honestly, the meaning of living the life you choose have kind of evolved over time. But especially after, I guess this year, living the life you choose, it means living my dreams and my values while honoring my body and mind's capacity and limitations. Living my dreams in a sustainable way. It's not just about pushing for more or pushing through willpower to not let my disease dictate and limit my life anymore, but just keep showing up, and then as you go along, putting in the effort to just keep growing alongside the disease, and then being able to then find calmness and peace in the uncertainty of life with chronic illness.
And what about you, Gabrielle? What does it mean to you?
Well, in my case, for me, living the life I choose is like accepting that you have this condition. You are not like other persons, so you have to do healthy habits in your life to live with this disease, like changing the way you eat, do sports, a lot of healthy habits in order to manage this condition.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Beyond the Flare. I want to say a huge thank you to our guests for sharing their stories and experiences, and to you, our listeners, for being part of this global community. So be sure to subscribe so you catch our future conversations. And until then, take good care of yourself and each other.